Hi, welcome to the Backstory Podcast, Wilmington Church Christ Backstory Podcast. I'm here with Matt and Beth Puckett, and some other children are in studio, which is awesome. And I just thought of this, perfect segue. And you don't know this, but I have bragged about you two a lot. You want to say hi, Matt?
Hi.
You want to say hi, Beth?
Hi, Beth.
Okay, perfect. I have bragged about you two, and here's the story I tell, and you'll have to correct what is right and wrong. So here's the story. Several years ago, you two came to me and you said, we want to serve God and we want God to open up new ways to serve him. And you had just received a small inheritance or some kind of small pocket full of money.
Yep.
And you said, okay, pray for us so we can determine what to do with this money because we want to serve God and we want to fully commit to God with our lives. Then you went on a short-term mission trip to Haiti. And I think in your minds, you both were like, wow, this is where God wants to be. Short-term mission trip. This is how we're going to serve God. This is the new calling. Yep. And then you did that for a little while. And then all of a sudden, God brought children into your lives. And I wonder if that calling all of a sudden switched over to like, oh, this is what God wanted us to do. When we said we're going to commit our whole lives to him, we thought it was this, but now all of a sudden God has brought this new, wonderful sacrifice for his kingdom that's actually glorifies him, brings about a big deal. So your children are here. That's fine.
Here.
So pick up what did I get right and where do I need correction on that story?
So back up. Actually, I was doing jail ministry.
Okay.
You had came to me and said, we need someone to go into the jails. And I said, not me. And then a year later, the Lord said, yes, you. And
so you have done jail ministry, and Matt, you've done jail ministry too.
A prison ministry,
Yeah. So I was doing jail ministry in Clinton County. And then that's when we went on the short-term mission trip.
Okay.
And then when we came back, one of the ladies that I met through my jail ministry contacted us and wanted to talk to us.
Okay.
And
keep going.
We felt like that God had set it up because right in between the two mission trips that we went on, we went to a Safe Families training, and I was like, what are we doing here?
A safe family training. What is that?
It's basically where the church steps up to be foster parents before the county or the law enforcement get involved.
It's to help families before the kids get caught up in
And you had gone to one
system.
of those meetings and started your training, and you didn't know why you were doing that.
Right. Matt said, why are we here? You're crazy. We don't have time.
Yeah,
and I said,
I'm done having kids.
just be quiet and go. He was like, okay.
But all of that was under the prayer, God, we want you to use us.
Yes.
God, we want to be fully open to wherever you take us.
Right.
And at that point, did you think, before you went to Safe Families training, did you think you had found what God had set up for you, or were you still saying, I'm open to wherever you want to lead?
We were open. We didn't know how God was going to use that. We went with a friend and her husband as well. So we kind of came up with this plan that she would get the kids. I would keep them at night. She would watch them during the day. Like we were going to work it out that way because I worked full time. Matt worked full time. Had teenage boys in the house. Didn't know how we were going to do that. But yeah.
And then, so pick up from the story there. Somebody you had met in jail ministries contacted you.
She reached out and said, I would like to talk to you about something near and dear to my heart, which I already knew she was pregnant.
Okay.
And I looked at Matt and I'm like, she wants us to take her baby. And Matt was like, no way. I'm like, oh, and then you're like, oh, I can't think that. I can't think about that. So we met with her several times before she finally came out and said, I'm in some trouble. I'm going to have the baby, but I need to do some time. Will you just keep him short term?
Okay.
And that's when Matt was like, Safe Families.
God's already set it up.
We've gone through the training. It'll protect her. It'll protect us. So we'll go through Safe Families.
Matt, how long was the training for Safe Families?
It was a couple of different, 2 or 3 different sessions, I believe, something like that.
Okay.
So many hours.
Yeah.
And you got certified at the end, like a certification. You went through
like
training?
approval, and we had to do like the background checks and all that stuff too.
Okay, great. Plus, you were both already parents before. That's got to count for something, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, we figured out how to do it wrong many times.
And so then she says, okay, I want you to help take care of my baby for short term. And
And then
You did that.
So when she had the baby, we went to the hospital to give her a car seat, congratulate her, and just go on our way because at that point, nothing came about her being in trouble anymore. And while we were there, found out the baby had tested positive for drugs and they were taking him to Children's. And
So that's bad news for Mama.
that's bad news for Mama.
Okay.
And because of that, Children's Services got involved.
And so when Children's Services got involved, they didn't try to take away the plan that you already made. They started following through with the plan that you made.
So mom said, I want the Pucketts to take my baby if you're taking my baby away from me. Children's Services actually called me and said, Miss Puckett, we don't need you. We have our own foster families that are ready to take on babies. We don't need you.
Okay.
So I sat the boys down.
I was away from home that night in Indianapolis, I believe.
So I just sat them down because it was a roller coaster. This was like 2 weeks in. And I was like, boys, it's going to be an act of God for us to get this baby.
Okay.
It's in God's hands.
You wanted to take
We
the baby
wanted
home.
to.
Okay.
And I remember that night I laid on the floor, my face down, and just said, God, let me take this baby. The circumstances around his life, there was a grandma involved too that was trying to get him, but it's not a good place for him to be. I said, Lord, I will train him and teach him to love you and serve you.
Mm-hmm.
Just let me have him.
I think I remember you asking us to pray too. Asking
Probably.
the church to
We were
pray.
asking
Texting
for
me.
prayer.
Yeah,
all over.
probably.
There's power in prayer, so we believe.
So then the next morning, like he said, he was out of town. Next morning, I was on my way to work, 7:30 in the morning. The grandma called me and said, the family has decided we want you to have the baby. And I said, you've told me that once before. And I'm tired of these games. And as she's talking to me, Children's Services called and said, I'm on my way to your house. You're getting the baby tomorrow. And I was like, I'm on my way to work. He said, I have to come to your house.
Sure.
So called work, said I'll be late, turned around, went back. He did a quick home assessment.
Yes.
Then I was on my way back to work again. Children's Hospital called and said, we need you to come here for training so you can take this baby home tomorrow.
Wow.
So then we went straight to Children's.
I actually drove from Indianapolis to Dayton.
Yeah. To spend time with him and get
So
trained.
what you're describing to me, it sounds like this is something you wanted, but it's not necessarily easy.
Correct.
And there is emotions involved, emotions from you all, emotions from the family that's involved,
Yes.
ups and downs. Describe the emotional roller coaster that
I
you
believe
go
it's
on.
like chaos with, it's finally when you surrender all.
Yeah.
Like, okay, God, I don't know how it's going to work. It's in your hands.
You can work it out.
That's when it really
Yeah.
shows. He shows up and shows off.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So that was the first child that you
Correct.
ended up adopting.
Correct. So we had him he was 18 months, almost 2 years old when we finally adopted him.
I think I was at that adoption
You
court
were there,
proceeding,
and it was very
celebrating.
emotional.
I
Yeah.
don't think I cried.
No, not at all.
Maybe it was a little dusty in there. I got just a
yeah,
tear.
there was some dust in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dust in the air. And then since then, you have had experience with more children coming into your life.
Absolutely.
So walk me through some of what happened there with those experiences.
I was working out of the house on a Tuesday, and I got a phone call. Beth said, "Hey, what do you think about a little girl?
Another child.
Another baby?"
Okay.
I'm like, sure, why not?
That was his exact response. Sure, why not? And I said, okay.
Once you start taking one,
What's another one?
what's another one?
So I sent an email to our attorney because if it's possible,
My
what do we
wife's
need
getting
to
a
do?
baby.
Yeah.
So on Wednesday, she called me back like, they want us to get her. Want to know when we can get her. We need to get her today.
So who was calling you? How did the family find out about you that they would want you to have
So
another take care of their baby?
I worked with a biological grandma,
Okay.
and she actually had called her boss, who was one of my good friends, and was talking about her grandbaby who was being sent to Texas to be adopted, and how upset she was about that, and how she just wanted her to be here closer so she could have contact with her. And I said, tell her I'll take her. Tell her I'll take her. And my friend was like, no, I'm not telling her that. I'm like, tell her I'll take her. She said, you call your husband. So then I called the husband. Husband said, sweet, go for it. And I said, you tell her. My husband said yes. And then within 24 hours, we had her in our
evening,
care.
We actually met two strangers in a Kroger that had a bank there for a notary with a paper of temporary power of attorney.
Oh, wow.
Not
That
a clue.
fast.
They had never met us. Yeah.
The mother actually got in the vehicle with us after we had the paper signed, and we drove to her aunt's house. They loaded our vehicle up and handed the baby over, and
we left.
we left.
With a baby.
So this is not a normal adoption story.
No.
This is, you would say God is moving
So I would
in
like
this.
to back up a little bit.
Please.
So like probably, I don't know, 13 years before that, I felt like God spoke to me and told me I was going to have a little girl. And this was when I was married in a bad marriage and I wasn't going to have any more children. So, and I know for a fact God spoke to my heart and said I would have a little girl one day.
And you thought,
So throughout the
please.
years, I mean, I've had nieces, I've had friends, I've
And you
had
thought those were answers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
My niece, that's my little girl.
Oh, yeah,
God
that's
set
my
me
little
up.
girl.
Okay.
Or, my best friend's little girl who was my buddy when she, like those are my girls.
And then you married Matt, and he said he was going to have no more children.
No more children.
Right
Yes.
off the bat, no more kids. I'm done having
A
kids.
week
If you wanna
into
marry
date.
me,
Yeah, the
that's it.
first week of dating, he's like, if you want kids, I'm not the guy.
And you still took him.
I did.
Okay. And so
I was going to prove him wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
had no idea.
so we got our little girl, and then we had her for about 3 weeks. And then grandma came and took her from us.
oh, that
I want her back.
how
I want her back.
Walk us through the emotion of like
We
you
had
have
no
a baby
idea.
for 3 weeks, and then does the court
Well,
make
there
that
was
happen?
no court involved at this point. We were still waiting on.
Is this what's called kinship care? Is that
Nope,
something?
this
No,
was.
okay. This is Safe Families Training.
No, this was just
Nobody was involved. It
strangers.
was just like
How does
Exchanging
that even
a
work? That can't
baby.
be legal.
we were concerned. That's the reason
That's
why
why we
met
have a
with the
power of attorney.
Okay,
We met
okay.
with the attorney beforehand because we
Yeah.
wanted to make sure.
And we were waiting for a court date to get
Okay.
it legal.
So you were pursuing.
We were
legal-
pursuing, and parents were agreeing, but then
Okay.
all of a sudden, one certain parent was not agreeing anymore.
Okay,
And
which
said,
can happen with adoption.
It can.
Stories.
And he said, I want my mom to have her. And grandma said, I want her back.
We had no idea what to do.
Okay.
So it's like, what we have no power.
Yeah. We had no
Biologically.
legal anything to keep her.
So did she go home with grandma that night?
So she went home with grandma that night.
Wow.
And then
And
Have you already fallen in love with this baby at this point?
absolutely. Absolutely.
From the moment you said I'll take her,
Yes.
you were in love with her?
Yes.
What about you? Had you already
yeah.
fallen? Okay.
Yeah. So then it was one of those things I prayed every day, like cried every morning on the way to work for an hour.
I think I remember you asking us to pray for you.
Probably. So Monday I cried, Tuesday, Wednesday, by Thursday on my way to work, I said, Lord, I know you promised me a little girl. And if it was just for 3 weeks, I'm okay with that. Because newborns are a lot of work. And I see now I'm
working
tired.
full-time
And I am
already
satisfied
having
with the
kids
kids that we have. And I'm okay with that. And then a family member reached out to me the very next day and said, she can't stay where she's at. It's not safe. We're calling children's services on her.
the mother's family.
Reached out to us.
Yeah.
And it was not a safe.
It was not.
And we learned
we
that
didn't
after
know
a-
that.
a home assessment through another county, I think it was Butler County, they reached out and said you shouldn't have handed them over.
But we didn't
Well,
know.
I think legally you probably had to.
They said we
We had
didn't.
no idea.
Oh, wow.
But
Yeah.
we didn't
I'm
know.
not sure how that works. It sounds like kidnapping if you don't.
I know.
So,
Exactly. So
But it's
that's the way we
so,
felt.
I know.
So when
So
did you
anyway.
get this little
So
girl back?
on Friday, the family member reached out and said it's not a safe environment. So we knew Children's Services was called. On Monday, I just texted the grandma and was like, how's she doing? Give her a hug. Just, we miss her so much.
Mm-hmm.
And grandma's like, oh, she's great. I will. And then the next text was, I can't do this. You need to have her back.
Oh, wow.
So we got her back the next day. So she was gone a week.
As I mentioned before, Rylan, or I don't know if I can say names. Let me put a mark on that. There's
You
a way to
can.
mark.
But you can.
As I mentioned before, we have some of your kids in, and they were just coming over to say hi. So they can come over and say hi, and we can put a mark in here, and we can get back to the interview.
Rylan Emery, you want to come say hi?
Walk
Walk around, not through.
You're going to say hi into this microphone right here? Say hello.
Hello.
That was perfect. Perfect. And I got you on camera doing that.
All right. Do you want to say hi?
Okay, come over and say hi right in there.
Hi.
That was excellent.
Okay.
Excellent. I'll put a little mark there in case our editor wants to leave that in or take
Do
that
something.
out. So that has to be the worst and best feelings all within a couple of days.
Yes.
So I want to get to where you are now currently because you are housing more kids. But before that, I need to ask this question. What you are describing with that emotional roller coaster, and yes, God seems to be moving, and yes, there's got to be like, I'm confused, and I don't know what to do, and I'm not really sure what the legality of this. Is adoption worth it?
Right.
Most definitely.
Oh, well, convince me. Why is it still worth it? Because you just described like horrible week, a very bad, no good, horrible week. You just described that.
Let's look at the big picture.
Okay.
What's Christ call us to do? Take up our cross and follow him. So if you're doing that, there's sacrifices.
No, thank you.
That's like surrendering everything every day.
That's well said.
Yeah.
We are going to frame that and have that repeated over and over. So
Put it
what?
on a loop.
You agree?
Absolutely.
Would you say it? How would you say it?
Oh, goodness. So I went to a friend one day recently. I was very overwhelmed with all these children in my house.
Mm-hmm.
And I was struggling. And she says to me, we are called to be living sacrifices. And that's what you're doing. And when she said that, it just switched something in my brain. And that's how I have to look at it. And that was before your sermon about being a living sacrifice.
I think the scripture speaks to that. Yeah, pretty clearly.
I fail daily, but the song that I normally try to live by is
Go ahead.
Take My Life and Let It Be.
Okay.
And my version of it,
Yeah.
Take my life and let it be, all for you and all for your glory. And I'm not a singer, so I'm not going to try to sing it. But
we are not allowed to sing it, I don't think.
Oh,
but
that's
you can
awesome.
quote some lyrics.
Yeah.
You want to tell me some more of those lyrics? In case somebody doesn't know that song.
Well,
Yeah, I see that you have the lyrics pulled up there.
my moments and my days, let them flow endlessly in your praise.
Yeah.
And you all are doing that. That is how you are serving the Lord. And you all serve in a lot of different ways, but you all feel like serving, being parents to these children is a way to bring about the kingdom of God.
Yep.
Yeah, every so often we look at each other like we could have been empty nesters this year.
We could have been.
And you're
But-
saying it's worth it.
It is worth it. If we weren't doing this, we'd be doing something.
Sure.
So why not make an investment into children's lives?
And looking at the age too, like, well, I'm too old, whatever. When we got Rylan into our lives, I was 45.
When you had your first
First with
Adoption.
new baby.
New
So-
baby. I'm 45 years old with the newborn.
45 years old with a newborn, and then you both of you have children that
Right.
are older,
Right?
and your two. I know Beth, your two oldest had just gone in the military,
Correct.
so
They're
they're
overseas.
older.
Right, they're
And then
gone.
How much of age difference is your older boys with your?
So Rylan and Matthew, my oldest, they are 13 years apart.
13 years apart, and you got Rylan as an infant.
Yes.
And then, how many children are currently in your home now? And how many belong to you legally,
Okay.
and how many have you kidnapped? No, that's not right. I shouldn't say that. No, I'm just kidding. That's not a kidnap.
Right. So we have the two that are adopted, Rylan and Emery, and then we also have 3 foster children.
3 foster children. And those, we will not say their names because
Correct.
that's okay. And so how did the foster care come about? So you told the story of adoption, but
Right.
how did the foster care come about?
So we had 3 boys in 1 bedroom in our house. And so we started looking for a bigger house.
Okay.
And when we looked at a house that we live in now, we walked through and Matt was like, these people foster. And I'm like, how do you
There's
know?
signs.
He was like, just look around. You can just tell. They had like exit plans on the wall and stuff like that.
You
And
have
he's
to have them
Okay.
which
posted.
you have to have posted if you foster. He was like, I think this is what we need to do. This is the house for us. And I think that's our next step. It's a bigger house. We can house more children. And that was before Emory, though.
Already thinking ahead.
Yes,
Yeah.
already. And that was before we got Emory. So then we got Emory, and a few years passed by, and I lost my job in 2020.
A lot of people lost their job in 2020.
Then it
sure.
was kind of like, what are we going to do now? Because that was always my excuse: is I work full time, I can't take on more kids.
Okay.
It would have been no problem getting another job, but she was being open to God's will.
Okay.
Exactly. So then we just started the process. We went to we was like, we'll start the classes,
Okay.
and then we'll see, because you can take the classes and not
recommend-
follow through.
I recommend the classes for everybody because there's things you learn. that
We learned
you
a lot
should-
about our own children just going through
Man,
those
if we would have
classes.
known that ahead of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
For example, one thing that really stuck out at me is the cerebral cortex doesn't fully connect until you're about 25. So that common sense, thinking of the results of what's going to happen when you jump the ramp
Consequences,
or
yeah.
get in the car and drive
That
fast.
explains so much about
Oh, yeah.
myself.
Me too.
It probably does, because you're not 25 yet, are you?
No.
Almost there, but
You're
now that
getting there.
explains why I make the choices I make. Maybe someday. Yeah, we can take a little break.
Yes,
And
to
I got a
empty out his
tissue
mouth.
right over there if you need it. Tissue. It's on that shelf right over there. Matt is going to get it.
Oh, you want it back?
No, get a new one, dude. Gross.
It is great.
I'm glad we're recording this. Now
This is my life.
he's still not in the camera, which is okay because he's a foster care. He's not supposed to be in the camera. Let me just make sure he's not.
He's
You can
fine.
black his face out. If,
He's the side of them anyway.
could, but I don't think I can.
yeah. Or put
He's
a
good.
gray area over his face.
Hmm? Okay.
Okay.
Little intermission.
I may have smashed a little goldfish into the carpet here.
Uh-oh.
That's okay. So you just said everybody should take the foster care class because you learn so much.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
So you learned about your own kids, and then you also were learning to have more kids.
Yeah.
What's the number one thing you think you took away from foster care besides Dale's brain hasn't fully connected yet?
There's
a-
a need, a great
Yeah.
need, but also kind of the results of a newborn in the womb.
Yeah, the trauma
The trauma.
that these kids have gone through and how it develops their brain,
Okay. So
rewires
the
it.
two big things is there's a huge need for foster parents
Yes.
because there's a lot more kids in the system than there are homes to
Homes.
place them in.
Correct.
And second, the kids are in double need because of the trauma they've experienced.
Yep.
Oh, that's going to show up on the video, and then be like, "Where'd that come from? It's like a magic trick."
Uh-oh, he said. Sorry.
And there's a need in the foster system, double need for the kids because they've experienced trauma and they need somebody to love them.
Yes.
I know we're involved in a mentorship program over at the school with middle schoolers, and they were talking about the brain function. And one of our instructors in our training said the part of the brain for these middle schoolers that we're meeting with about planning for the future basically has no blood flow.
Right.
They cannot see because they've experienced some kind of trauma, because they're being neglected or something. Something has happened where the part of their brain that we all use to operate on, okay, I'm going to plan for our future, I'm going to plan for tomorrow, that part has no blood flow. So they can't think of tomorrow. They can only think of today.
Right.
How are they going to eat today? How are they going to get cared for today? And they said just a couple of times a month, 30 minutes a month basically, of somebody saying they care for them turns that section of the brain back on. And blood flow starts going. They're able to start seeing there is a hope for
There's a
tomorrow.
hope.
And so I wonder if that's some of the same experience your foster
Yes.
care
Yep.
people are going through, these students and kids.
I would say they go through that. They need a lot of reassuring of what's happening next.
Okay.
Like, we try to enjoy the moment, but it's always what's happening next.
Is that like a fear?
It's a fear, and they don't have stability. So
Okay.
they're just checking that too. Like, are we going to still be here tomorrow or
Okay.
are we going to be somewhere else tomorrow? You're going to still be here tomorrow. You're here. This
Oh.
is where we are.
That reminds me of my buddy Nick. He fostered to adopt, and he said their oldest was on like tip-top best behavior.
Oh, yeah.
They got 3. And he said once she figured out that they were going to be forever parents, then they started seeing her real side.
Oh, yes.
She was behaving because she was scared she was going
Kind
to
of
be
a
sent somewhere.
chameleon.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden he said, "Oh, now we see." And they, they're dealing with her as a good parent should, and they're training her. She's still young, but they said we didn't. She was playing the
Oh,
system
yeah.
because
Oh,
she
yeah.
got used to playing the system.
Yeah.
So you're saying
see that.
a lot of kids are like
so we
that.
have an 11-year-old girl in our house right now, which I was not prepared for.
Okay. You're
5-year-old I
another
can deal
daughter.
with. 11-year-old not so much. But she
She knows how to push your buttons.
She can push buttons, but she can also know how to work me too.
She's had to do that before.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's a survival skill.
It is survival skill. So we do
Okay.
a lot of teaching on character building and life skills.
And it also helps build your character.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah.
It builds ours.
Like,
Mr. Matt had to go to the corner the
Matt.
other night.
You talking about your husband?
That would be my husband. He was mean and he had to
I-
go stand in the
I
corner.
misbehaved, and I felt it was my duty to go to the corner.
To show them this is
Yep.
the punishment we do
Yeah.
to help us grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
With
went and stood in the
humility.
corner.
Yep, and somebody took my
Beth,
picture.
you have got to take a picture of that.
I did.
Oh, we can show that on this podcast.
okay. That's
When it goes on
awesome.
YouTube,
That's
you have to
not
share that
cool.
picture. Rylan, there's nothing saying show it. We will show it, Rylan. So that's good. That part of that training. So I need to ask: are you all? I've heard there's 2 different types of foster. There's foster care parents, and then there's foster to adopt. Which are
Correct.
you doing currently? Because
We have the little check mark on our paper. It says foster to adopt, but that is not our intention.
Okay.
We literally just want to be a stop in their journey,
Okay.
a safe place.
Unless God calls you otherwise.
Unless God calls us otherwise.
Yeah, our first
We're not praying for that though, for more children to stay.
foster children that came to our house showed up on Easter, and they were perfect. Like, we want to adopt
They
them.
were
we wanna adopt
angels.
Okay.
them. And they were actually going up for adoption. I forget their ages,
4 and 5 or something
but
like that.
they didn't mesh with our children here,
Okay.
and we kind of struggled with that.
But we knew if we kept them, the ultimate thing was we knew if we kept them, we couldn't take in more kids.
Okay.
It was like we would have to be done. So we just want to help as many kids as we can.
So
along
there's
the
a
way.
limit
There is.
for you all.
There is.
well,
Yes.
you got to look at your home.
Yeah.
Unless you want to expand, or God uses you to expand your home, there's a limit.
I have one bed that's empty, but the caseworkers know that's for my children when they come to visit.
Okay.
Do not certify that bed.
Excellent. Okay. So what advice would you give to somebody who wants to start pursuing this? Because it sounds like a lot. There's a lot
is
to
a lot.
know, a lot to learn. There's a process that takes some
Mm-hmm.
time. And then you, with the foster care process, there is even more. You have to like pass a test that says, and then your home has to pass a test.
Correct.
And then
Monthly.
you are under, you said monthly has to pass a test, and you all are under observation through this period of time. So, and you're still saying it's worth it.
Yes. Definitely
So
worth it.
What advice would you give to someone? Matt is going to help take care of a child right now. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to start the process, and they're not for sure if they want to?
Take the classes. Sign up for the classes.
Pray about it.
Oh, yeah. Pray about it too.
Take the classes.
Take
Just
the
to learn,
classes
be
regardless,
educated.
but pray about it while you're doing it.
Yeah. And come talk to us. Like we're open to talk. Yeah.
Okay.
If you think you've got it bad,
Or
just
come
talk to
visit us
friends.
one evening. You'll see our house.
Would that scare somebody away or invite somebody in?
I don't know. I think it would be inviting
So a good friend of
if
mine,
they like kids.
a good friend of mine from Highland County, lives in Greenfield. He's had over 60 kids go through his house
As a foster parent. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was involved with the prison ministry with him, and he said the hardest thing is to see a kid go back in the system and then turn around and get back into fostering, just to be manipulated.
to go home with a parent and then end up back in.
And it's
Custody.
heartbreaking to see, a child moved around. Currently, I think we have 4 different times with our current children.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of heartbreaking. You think they go home, they think it's good, and they're ripped out from out there. They're taken away from their home,
Which is another
And-
trauma.
Right.
and just ripped from one home to another, and they're
It's
unsure
hard.
what their forever home's going to look like.
How
Right.
do you protect your heart when you go through that?
We haven't figured that out yet.
It's
Prayer.
tough, just prayer, asking God. We went on vacation this last summer, and I felt like God was pushing us to take our foster children with us.
Okay.
We have to be pre-approved, but it's one
Can I
of those
hold it?
things during
we
vacation.
have one of our foster kids right now.
Sorry.
Well, if you pick him up, he'll be on camera. We need to put that.
That's okay.
Okay.
There you go.
Hi, buddy. That seems to like that. Okay.
Yes, he does.
Am I ready to talk
Yes.
now?
Yep,
You're
you're
going to
good.
grab that? Here we go. We're back in.
All right.
So you were saying God was telling you, take him on vacation.
But
It's okay.
I wonder why, though, during the vacation, it was like, what were we thinking? Like, her brother has similar aged children that he also brought along. So how many kids were there?
Too many. There were way more
Like
children than adults.
11 kids to 3 adults.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And they were from 13 to 5.
5. Okay.
And
And they all got along perfectly.
it was just chaos.
Oh, chaos.
Why are you eating in the living room? Why, at least clean up after yourself. And it was just a couple different styles of parenting was a problem as well. And
Sure.
it was just a tough thing. But the attention seeking also when a child goes into the ocean and gets stung by a jellyfish
That aren't there.
a dozen times,
Oh, wow.
it's tough.
But it was made up.
yeah, it's
Lots
kinda
of crying.
obvious.
Lots of tears. Like the 11-year-old girl drama. Wasn't ready for that.
Okay.
Um,
But still, you're saying it's still worth it?
yeah.
Still
Memories.
worth the sacrifice. And it was still worth it to take them on vacation. So you said the advice you would give is pray about it, go on and take the classes. You're going to learn a lot regardless.
Exactly.
And open yourself up to where God's going to lead you. What
Yep.
else? What other advice would you give to somebody, a prospective foster parent?
Talk to other people who are doing it.
Oh, that's
So
really
Yeah.
good
I
advice.
say a prayer often with the boys and the kids, asking God to let us listen, and love. It's a saying through Kairos. And also to be used by God. Use us and guide us. And if you're really serious about that, being used by God, it's not about your plans. So you have to adapt.
That is fantastic advice for any Christian, not just for
Yes.
potential adoptive parents or foster parents.
Yeah, most definitely.
Just be open to where God's going to use you, but then be willing to get rid of your plans, take on His.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
good advice.
Yep.